Hi, so I'm Charlie Bondhus. I have just gone live to give people a chance to come into the room before the reading begins. So I'm just talking now, whiling down the time before people come in. What can I talk about? Well, I'm here in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where we were supposed to get, well, New Jersey got snow. We're down by the shore, so it just rained. There was some sun that came out, which was nice. I've been spending the day cleaning up and picking things up, and also went and did some writing. My husband and I did a joint writing project, which was pretty cool. Also working on an essay, an article. What else? Oh, tonight is the super wolf blood moon. I think that's how you say it. And it's also a lunar eclipse at that. Um, so very magical, very appropriate day to have this reading. Um, the I think it's funny, super wolf blood moon. I mean, it does kind of sound like the email address of like a goth middle schooler. But it's also an eclipse, which is pretty neat. I'm sure I'll be doing some kind of magic later this evening, to take advantage of this special occasion. I see we've got two people watching so far. Hello. Um, I am just sitting here chatting, giving people time to come into the room. It's not quite time to start yet, but we wanted to get the door open. I was told that the room doesn't exist until I actually click on it, until I actually start, which seemed very existential to me. The room doesn't exist until I enter it. Maybe there's a poem in that. Um, but I am here in the room, existing, so that it can be made available to other people. People can come in. Uh, what else is there to say? It's not quite 7 yet. I think I'm just going to sit here and prattle till, oh, okay, now it just hit 7. But I'm just going to sit here and prattle for a couple more minutes because we need time for people to come in. Is that what it is? I see the I and I see the 2, so I assume that means 2 people are watching. Yep, the 2 of you. Thanks for being the first in the room. You're cool. Uh, what else is there to say? Um, I am going to read, of course, from Divining Bones tonight, put out by Sundress Publications. It's kind of an unusual book. The last book that I put out, All the Heat We Could Carry, was a book of poems about war and soldiers. Gay soldier and his home front lover coming back, and the connection and disconnection between the two of them. I got there. I ended up writing that by doing a lot of research, talking to people who had been overseas, talking to people who were the spouses of soldiers, doing a lot of reading. It's kind of an interesting experience to write a book like that, to write a book that was so contingent upon research, and that I didn't have any personal experience in. Yet it raised this question of, is it appropriate for me to write a book like that where I don't have personal experience? Um, I had to have a couple of veterans look at it and see what they thought about it to see if I really got that experience down and accurate. And I got pretty good feedback on it. I mean, this book, Divining Bones, is much more personal and direct. Um, okay, just getting some messages here from Anna. Um, Looks like she's on her way onto the feed. Let me just turn off my phone here. Well, not turn it off, mute it, because I don't want to turn it off and then have Anna not have a way to get in touch with me. Um, Yeah, this one, as I was saying, this one is much more personal because, it does come from a place of experience. My own experiences working with Baba Yaga, and working with in witchcraft and paganism. I'm going to adjust my screen a little bit. I've got the computer resting on top of a pillow, resting in my lap. I'm going to try not to jostle it. I've noticed that it can be a little bit bumpy if I move my legs, and I don't want to make anybody seasick watching me read. Seasick at a poetry reading. That would be interesting. Um, so I'm just going to sit tight and maybe give it another 2 minutes before we officially start. I see a few more people are watching now. 7:03, give it to 7:05, 7:06, and then we'll get moving. Oh, I see somebody gave it a thumbs up. Whoever it was who just gave me a thumbs up, thank you. I guess maybe you're saying thumbs up to wait a couple more minutes, or just thumbs up in general. In any case, thank you. I kind of feel like I'm thinking about those old pledge drives, that they used to do on TV, where you had like they would interrupt the movie you were watching, and you know, it would be like 20 minutes of watching people in the phone banks, and it would say, 1-800, there'd be a 1-800 number, be like, call in and pledge, and then the person would be saying, oh, we've got a pledge for $25. $25 is up on the wall. That's kind of how I feel looking and, narrating these likes that are popping up. Um, you know, one of those, I don't know if they still do those. But then again, I haven't watched cable in a long time. If you've just signed on and you wonder why I'm just sort of rambling and yammering, I am killing some time until to let people get into the room. It's 7:04. Maybe we'll start in another minute or two, give people time to log in. Um, I don't get nervous for poetry readings anymore, really. I've done enough of them that and also teaching. I'm used to being in front of an audience. But honestly, I was actually kind of more nervous to do this one because I don't see my audience. I'm kind of like in a panopticon in some ways. Although I know I'm being watched. I've got the little eye icons up here that says there are 5 people. Um, so yeah, so that was a little more unusual for me than the typical poetry reading. All right. I'm told that there is a significant time lapse on this thing, so we'll just have to make do as best we can. I'm going to read for about 15 minutes. Um, After those 15 minutes have passed, um, we are going to open it up for question and answer. But I was told, again, there's a significant time lapse and that it takes a while for the questions to appear on my feed. So what I'm going to do at the end of the reading is I'm going to talk about why Baba Yaga, where did this book come from? Um, and because those are questions that I think people might want to know, that people might be asking anyway. So I can, I'll do that to just sort of, fill some space between the reading and when the questions start to appear on the screen, since, as I just said, I see more people are joining. So I'll just repeat myself. As I just said, there is a delay between people typing their questions and them appearing on my screen. So I'm going to, talk a little bit about where the book came from and so forth after the reading is done, after 15 minutes to fill in that gap. So anyway, no further ado, let's get started. Divining Bones, okay? Thank you very much to Anna and Aaron and everybody at Sundress for inviting me to do this reading. Very happy to be here in my own living room with you. All right, I'm going to start with a poem called Witchcraft and Demonology. It's a long poem sequence in the book, broken up into multiple sections. I'm just going to read the first section as a way to introduce things. When I was 13, I read the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology cover to cover. Some of the pages were glossy as wet skin, full color photos of demons copulating with witches, Asmodeus, Baphomet, Legion, Malthus, female bodies wrenched into postures that defied the dictates of bone, many armed lovers with manifold teeth, beautiful as saints but meteor. Hell seemed a place where horned lovers with 1,000 cocks would treat my soul as if it were a body. But I promised my mother to be gay, not queer. No broomsticks, desecrated wafers, or dancing naked under the moon. Instead, monogamy and mortgage, friendship and four walls, the only magic the Catholic kind, wine turned to blood on Sundays. By days, witches work as dental assistants, ordering the mouth's yellow-red chaos, picking dirty talk from the teeth, soothing gums scorched by spells, scraping the tongue which is tired from pronouncing the 1,000 Sumerian names for Satan. I'm just going to assume you're plotting. So the second poem I'm going to read is called Baba Yaga and the Bones. Baba Yaga, for those of you who don't already know, is she's a key figure in this book. She is a crone witch goddess figure who comes out of a Russian spiritual tradition. Whoever's giving me the heart, thank you. I see a heart popping up. Crone witch goddess out of the Russian folkloric tradition. She lives in a house on chicken legs in the forest. And she flies not on a broom, but in a mortar using a pestle to steer. She's reputed to eat children, but I've never actually seen her succeed in any of the folk tales I've read. She is this boogie woman, but if you go to her and you know the right things to say and you're respectful, she might help you on your quest. So she certainly helped me on my quest, and continues to. So this book is dedicated in part to her. So here's the poem, Baba Yaga and the Bones. Tonight she's ravenous, and so she waves the pestle like a mad signal woman and descends, having spied a small whitish heap of dry sticks, cracked spheres, disconnected hinges. The smell of bone is like pheromones. She reaches into the pile, clutches the stiff curve of a femur. Thinking of meat, she runs her hands along the bone's white arc, fingers tensing until snap, and the broken bits drop into her lap. She gathers them, raises them to her lips, slurps the red and yellow filling her mouth with the long dead, imagining she can detect beneath the decay the jumpy taste of children, something she craves but has never had. Yeah, that whole thing about her allegedly eating children but never actually succeeding in it seems to me almost like this yet another aspersion against powerful women. But anyway, thank you, Julia Beach Anderson, for the applause. Next poem I'm going to read is called Bloody Mary, the game that many of us played as kids. Light a candle, chant at the mirror, and you'll see her in you, the old mistress, the bloodthirsty abortionist. After the 13th incantation, it began at my chin, and spread across mouth, jaw, and cheeks until my lower face was hers. 11 years old, I already knew the joys of being home alone, of leaving my bedroom door open as I pushed my pubescent cock and balls up inside, imagining myself as something else. When I touched my new hard lips, I thought about Mom, whose disapproval was stronger than any witchcraft. But it was already too late. When I turned on the light, my face had become sexless as an egg. It's a Bloody Mary poem. Where to next? Sexual fantasies. And it feels funny to say sexual fantasies on a webcam, but I promise you it's not that kind of show. Whether or not these are my sexual fantasies, I leave up to you to decide. 1. Visiting the erotic frescoes of Pompeii, we watch Priapus lean back and gesture at his impossible member and the spreading cracks. It sounds like the setup to a joke, but I'm serious as a temple when I say this does nothing for me. 2. On a dare, I shave my eyebrows and commit to the clean alien look, scraping away pubes, pits, legs, head. My genitals are an Arctic plain. 3. On a Chelsea rooftop, the rich queer artist pours concrete over my bare legs. The rented mariachis play Cielito Lindo, and the world gets harder. 4. I'm Bonnie Tyler, and you make love to me on stage. Halfway through the second chorus of Faster Than the Speed of Night, and I don't stop singing. It gets on YouTube, but my parents don't recognize me because I'm Bonnie Tyler, and my hair is feathered. So I've just realized that, this whole thing about there being a time-lapse delay between what I'm saying and what you're seeing is it is actually a pretty significant delay. I saw applause and I saw hearts, and I thought it was because of something I had just said, and now I'm realizing that it was things I had said before. So it's kind of funny. Like I'm seeing hearts now, and I have no idea what those hearts were for. But we're just going to keep going. Oh, applause for Bonnie Tyler. Okay, so the delay isn't too bad. Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to now read a poem called, if I can find my notes. Oh, Portrait of My Mother as Baba Yaga. You laugh when I tell you how I'd hide beneath the covers, where my stuffed animals were rats with human faces, and Mom was the boogie woman grabbing with strange fingers. A game like being tickled to screaming. I'd thrash in the hot dark until the sheets were soaked in my juices, and Mom was a cackling chef, furloughed from the polite society of my father, playing with her food. So I'm just going to read, I think maybe two or three more, because I'm looking at the time and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A. Another Baba Yaga. Baba and I clatch over reasons why we hate magic. The smell. It only works if someone else asks for it. Teenage girls in black nail polish. It's the only thing that separates me from the animals. After I cast a love spell, mosquitoes follow me for days. Candles get expensive. I also play the guitar, but you didn't know about that, did you? Men think it's sexy, at first. Never knowing whether I'm being asked for a hex or sex. Concerns about sustainability, a finite resource like water or time. It's always a hex. What would happen if Big Pharma caught on? At the end of the day, it's just another form of housekeeping. It never works on me. I'm going to end with a poem. I did self-portrait of my mother as Baba Yaga. Turnabout's fair play, so I'm going to do self-portrait as Baba Yaga to wind this down. Sundays, I go down to the Hungarian deli on the Lower East Side, where I can get away with eating children if I'm sly about it, slipping them into the goulash when no one's looking. Later, I cruise Coney Island in my mortar and pestle, but only the elderly Soviet emigres and granny fetishists pay attention. These days, I cast queer spells and burn myself at the stake for the crowds, offering nickel love potions to the lovelorn at 33rd and 7th. I have a tortoiseshell cat who catches mice and speaks Polish, and a tortoiseshell comb that turns into a city when it's thrown on the ground. When out-of-town children ask my gender, I tell them I'm a witch. So, I now I'm feeling like there might actually be not so much of a delay. I'm going to say go ahead and type your questions in. I'll keep an eye on the side over here, and see as questions arise. Um, but as I said at the beginning, I'm going to just talk very briefly about. I was going to say talk very briefly just about where did this book come from? Why Baba Yaga? Um, I was looking for a new book project in 2014, I think. And my best friend texted me a picture of this kind of artisanal beer called Baba beer with a picture of a sheep on it. Um, he was joking about it because there's a song by Alanis Morissette called Baba, and we're both really big Alanis Morissette fans. Um, but I didn't think of Alanis Morissette when I saw that. I thought of Baba Yaga, which was weird because you know I hadn't given much thought to her before. So I just had this thought, like maybe I need to write a series of poems about Baba Yaga. I just felt pulled towards it. So I did. Um, and then I went through some really tough times with mental health and, just a lot of sea changes and ground swells in my life. And that brought me into a spiritual place where I started, you know, meditating. And while meditating, I began to become more aware of just some of the spiritual energies that surround us. And I went back to mentally to my own sort of like high school days, thinking about, when I tried to be a witch and, Catholicism and fear, kind of got in my way. Um, so but I was thinking of all that again, and I realized I was being really strongly called back to it, to a spiritual path, to a pagan spiritual path. And Baba Yaga, I all of a sudden realized was quite real, and was reaching out to me, along with a couple other deities. Carnunos, this male, this powerful male antlered deity is one of them. The other is, Coatlicue, who is another, you know, terrible woman type of deity. You know, death and birth, indigenous Aztec. I mean, the book Divining Bones is dedicated to both of these deities, female deities, Baba Yaga and Coatlicue, for the ways that they helped me and continue to help me on my path. Um, so the book grew out of all of that. I don't see any questions coming up yet. If you're typing and sending your questions, please do. Please go ahead and do that. Um, I'm going to keep talking until something comes up, just so that the feed isn't interrupted. I'm going to take a drink of water first, if that's okay. But my process for this book, it did involve research. I actually did sit down and read Baba Yaga's stories, these folk tales. That's how I found out that she, never has actually eaten any children in any of these stories. Um, and beyond that, it was just my own spiritual experiences, my own experiences with gender. Gender is another big piece of this. As you were probably listening, you probably saw gender comes in a lot. Part of that period where I was just struggling with some real sea changes in my life um, was, were because of, I mean, not because of, I'm sorry, but, a big piece of it, it was joyous, but, a big piece of what I was going through was just having some questions about gender and gender identity. And I went through this long period of identifying as, non-binary, genderqueer. And I no longer feel that way. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of circled back around to being cisgender male, but that doesn't mean it was a phase. To me, that just is further evidence of just how fluid and mercurial gender is. But I see that I got a question from Lucy McDonald Stewart. What is it about Baba Yaga and terrible female deities in particular that you relate to or that speaks to you? Good question. Um, I feel like I feel in a lot of ways like, Baba Yaga, chose me. Like I said in that story that I told, I have no idea why she popped into my head when Baba Beer came up, but she just did. Um, I think that that element of creation and destruction speaks to me. The fact that these are very powerful women with this great capacity for magic, that they're prepared to extend to you, their devotees, but at the same time, they're not just here to serve you. These are deities who, you know, mean business and have their own, you know, personalities and strength. And they can really be role models in that way. They're deities we can learn a lot from, not just in terms of their direct lessons to us and our direct connections to them, but also in terms of just watching how they, how they, how their existence unfolds and how the roles they play in the universe. So that would be my answer to that question. Um, I don't see any more popping up just yet. I'm assured that questions do come, but they just take some time to appear in the sidebar. I'm guessing this is going to be one of those things where like 5 questions come up at once or something, and I'm going to be scrambling to try to respond to everything. But I'm going to use this chance to take another drink of water. Oh, another one just came up. Awesome, thank you. Oh, okay, that was you saying it. Thank you. You're welcome. I am also going to continue actually saying a little bit more about what you were just saying, since we have some time. Coatli Quay came to me more through reading. I was reading Gloria Anzaldúa, Borderlands, La Frontera, The New Mestiza, which is one of my desert island books. I mean, I read it years ago, but I was rereading it because I was going to be teaching it. She writes about the Coatli Quay state, which is when this serpent deity, Coatli Quay, comes and lays us low with an illness, Anzaldúa says. And forces us to slow down and reassess our lives. She strikes at us in order to force us to slow down and think. And then she's also the one who heals us. Anzaldúa has the line, something about, come snake, and, with the snake's, venom cure the snake's bite, something to that effect, which really appealed to me. She writes about what's called the Coatli Quay state, which is the state of mind in which, you have this receptivity to the lessons of the universe, and to, being opened up in these ways. So that further goes to your question. Still nothing else coming up. So I'm just going to keep talking about female deities, which is fine with me. Oh, wait, no, never mind. I'm going to stop because I see another one popped up. Did the original destination of your poems change once you went through your reflection period? That is a really good question. I'm trying to think back to what was happening at that time. Oh man. I feel like I wrote so many of these poems before that reflective period, but then maybe the process of revision maybe my process of revision was influenced by it. I think that a big thing I struggled with this book actually was not even so much writing the poems as it was actually organizing the book, figuring out what poems stay in, what poems go out, how do they come together to form a narrative. The narrative of this book is about a male assigned speaker, sort of exploring his gender identity with the help of Baba Yaga. You saw there were a lot of things, references to a mother in the poems. There is a lot of, mother stuff and, defining in relation to the mother and, Baba Yaga maybe becoming another type of a more supportive mother to this speaker. So I think that narrative, unfolded for me as I went through that reflection period, as that reflection period came out. So I think that's a very good question. Thank you. And I think that to answer it succinctly, how the poems came together was influenced by my reflection period. And I see another question came up. Oh, nope. It was just a follow-up. Poems in the book, you mean? Yes, poems in the book, right? I see Aaron joined. Hi, Aaron. So another question needs to arise. While I'm waiting for another question, I'm going to have a drink of water again. That was the last of my water. Okay. I think I have enough saliva to get through the rest of this, though. One thing I will say is that the cover art was designed by my husband, Kevin Hinkle. He did this work of fusing together a couple different images to create the cover image. He's watching from the he's watching from the other room on the computer. Hi, honey. His name's Kevin Hinkle, Hinkle. If you Google Kevin Hinkle photography, you can go to his website and see more of his really wonderful artwork, which is also for sale. So I want to plug his work while I'm here. All right. Something else has come up. Julia Beach Anderson says, I'm working on a question. Julie Menka says, Julie Menka, who I work with and who's pretty radical, says, I thought the line, but I promised my mother to be gay, not queer, was particularly interesting. Could you talk a little about the line and the juxtaposition of two identities? In this case, the mainstream and the non-mainstream. Okay. Um, could you talk a little bit about the line and the juxtaposition of two identities? Um, the difference between gay and queer is kind of what I hear in that question. I taught a class in called LGBT Lit about a year ago. And the first day of class, I said, there's another letter that often gets appended to that acronym. And, students all knew it was the Q. They knew it was queer. And, I said, what does queer mean? And they totally blew my mind on day one by saying, by all of a sudden, they're all like, had all these things about queer and what queer means, and they were great, and they thought about it as I do, as in many cases a political identity, and also an approach, a philosophical approach to life. Being gay, you can be gay and not, but not particularly queer, if you ask me. I mean, gay is inherently queer in the sense that you're going against, the heterosexual norm of coupling. You're having sex in ways that are not open to the possibility of procreation, as some haters used to say to me. But queerness is going against, this is going against these established social norms. Heterosexual people can certainly be queer, can certainly be in queer relationships. Queer as a verb, you can queer, well, you can queer poetry, by writing poetry that challenges what poetry is, or that goes against a certain, patriarchal norm and establishment. In terms of the poems in the book, though, to bring it actually back to the book, I think that the speaker's identity throughout this book is very queer. He's trying to figure himself out in terms of gender binary, against the gender binary, I should say. He gets into a relationship in this book, and these tensions arise in the relationship because of his gender identity. So I think of that as a conflict between gay male versus queer, because he's stepping outside of those binaries. Whereas, a gay relationship that isn't necessarily queer, might more might reflect the stereotypically heterosexual dynamic more. Honestly, I talk more in these questions, I think, because because I don't, necessarily see other questions popping up, and I'm trying not to have there be dead air. So if it seems like I'm babbling, that's why. It's also hard when you don't have the cues of the audience. We don't have the cues of who's looking at you, who's who's nodding their head, who's nodding off. I see Sarah Wynn just joined. Hi, Sarah. I published some of Sarah's work on the Good Men Project when I was editing there. She's a very good poet and also a fellow sundress writer. Okay, Julie Beach Anderson says, it seems like the world of Baba Yaga is one that would allow you to go really wild, the sense that anything could happen. Yet the poems remain grounded. What guides your sense of when to push forward and when to hold back? It seems that you have a finely tuned sense of restraint. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the compliment. I think that, all of us who went to Catholic school have a very finely tuned sense of restraint, especially if we were queer, because, you kind of had to survive. But in terms of restraint in poetry, that is a very big, common, piece of advice these days for poets. There's so much of this, have restraint, don't go over the top, less is more. That is a norm in poetry, and I think that it's worthwhile to challenge it at times, but I am still pretty much a fan of that. But I think it's interesting to take that norm and to challenge it with this, as you put it, wild material. Um, to say, okay, let's do the world of Baba Yaga. Let's do this stuff that can be really crazy and over the top, but do it in a way where, art, what we've learned as artists allows us to shape it in ways that are more controlled. Um, what exactly was the question? What guides your sense of when to push forward or when to hold back? Um, you know, I think most writers would tell you that so much of it's intuitive. Um, it's the force. You feel in your gut when to push forward and when to hold back. Um, which, to kind of go back to my story, a big part of learning how to be a happier, more rounded human being was learning how to trust that gut and that intuition more. I mean, I came to magic and paganism and witchcraft and all that with this mindset that I had to be completely empirical about it. I had to exhaust every single rational explanation before I could conclude that something supernatural had happened. And then I'm like, no, that's not the way to do it. You just need to sit there and trust your gut and say, okay, if that change in the currents around you, if that, pulse you felt going through your skin, if you think that was, an embrace from Baba Yaga or from Carnunos, go with it. Don't sit there and try to scientifically dissect it. Um, it did something for you. That's what matters. And it does something even more for you if you, in my case, if I, if I connect it to the spiritual practice I'm doing, being able to let go in that way and not control life so much, and to just let my not my impulses, that doesn't sound right, but my intuition guide me more, not let go of my head, but, listen to my heart and my instincts a bit more, would make me feel more in touch with myself. Um, take everything I just said about that as related to my life and bring that into my poetry. um, it's it's just something I think that and that you develop over time. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Um, as I wait for the next question to arise, one thing I do want to say is that I was really kind of thrown off because every now and then, like every single emoticon kind of floats up in the corner of the screen. Um, like at once. And at first I thought like it was just telling me when somebody was giving me a thumbs up or a heart. And like I saw an angry face and I saw a crying face at one point, and I got really kind of nervous. Like I was like, oh my God, who did I offend? Who did I upset? But I'm seeing that in the bar up top that there's like 11 reactions, and they're all thumbs up and hearts. So I'm just like, okay, I guess it's just been thumbs up and hearts. I guess nobody's been gotten angry or sad. Um, you know, I certainly hope not, unless it's a productive anger or sadness. So, okay. We've been at this for close to 45 minutes. If another question pops up, I'll answer it, but I'm not going to assume that another question is popping up. I also see that some people are leaving the room. So I do want to just say thank you all for coming and checking this out. It was a different experience. I enjoyed doing it. Um, and I urge you to order, if you haven't already, order Divining Bones, off of Sundress's website, not off of Amazon. Don't go to Amazon. Or you can certainly order it from me directly. Friend me on Facebook, send me a message telling me you're interested in buying a copy. I'm happy to sell you one through PayPal and sign it to you. That's another way to do it. And, go to Kevin Hinkle's website, Kevin Hinkle's photography as well. And yeah, nothing else has come up, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all for being a part of it, and good night.